cities, nobody had ever seen anything like this before. So for a few years after World War II, the United States had an incredible advantage, an incredible power, the ability to obliterate entire cities in almost the mere snap of a finger. Well, a few years after World War II, the Soviet Union also got nuclear weapons. And when they were able to add nuclear weapons, now all of a sudden, the world's power struggle began to change because now you had more of a balance of power all over again. After seeing what happened in Japan, the folks in Washington and the folks in Moscow both knew that if World War III was going to be based on a nuclear confrontation, if we thought the results or the casualties or the damages that were caused in both World War I and World War II were bad, they could not even begin to compute the damage that would occur from a nuclear World War III. Some folks will say that the Cold War, where the United States and the Soviet Union basically played games against each other, never ever got hot because both sides knew that they could inflict damage on the other side, but both sides also knew in the grand scheme of things that damage was coming to them, so they couldn't win. They couldn't win, they couldn't defeat the other one, they had to come up with something else. Ultimately, the Cold War ended, and when I was in graduate school, actually as an undergraduate at East Carolina University, the Berlin Wall fell. And actually, Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States that really began to turn it around. And there was a meeting years ago where he sat down with members of his staff, and he said, okay guys, what do we have more than the Russians? Do we have more missiles? And the obvious answer was no. Do we have more tanks? The obvious answer was no. Do we have more submarines? The obvious answer was no. Do we have more bullets? The obvious answer was no. The one thing that they came to the conclusion of that we did have more than the Soviet Union, that conclusion was we had more money. And since we had more money, what we were going to do is we were going to attempt to outspend the Soviet Union at that point. Now, to give you an idea of this, let me actually go to some crude, albeit wonderfully well-intentioned drawings that I might have. If you put the world up here, and let's just say that you've got the United States right here, and you've got this little thing going down, and it connects to South America down here, and you could add the little Hawaiian Islands over there, and you could, go much more further with this, obviously. One of the things that the United States did is that they attempted to develop something that was known as the Star Wars defense system. Now, if you're a Star Wars fan, this is probably going to look a little bit like a TIE fighter. And the idea was that under Star Wars Defense Initiative, or SDI, the Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, or otherwise known as Star Wars, what they were going to do is this. If somebody attempted to shoot a nuclear missile at, say, the United States, and this is, using your imagination, a nuclear missile that is coming right at us. These satellites the United States would shoot up into the air were going to be equipped in two ways. One is that they were going to be equipped with a laser, and the idea is that this laser would shoot, and as it would shoot, it would detonate or it would destroy nuclear missiles that were aimed at the United States. It would also be equipped with nuclear missiles of its own. And the idea is that they could not only knock down the missiles that were coming at the United States, whether it be with lasers or with other missiles, but it was also possible that they could shoot missiles to the other side of the world, and you would see the infamous mushroom cloud come over as the nuclear effects would hit. Now, this did a couple of things. Remember, they ultimately did not use nukes because nobody thought they could win a nuclear war. But if you all of a sudden had the ability to knock down the other side's missiles, now what you have is a defense. And if you have a defense, meaning you can shoot down their missiles and you can fire your missiles at them and they're not going to be defeated, well, now all of a sudden the danger is that you might think you could win a nuclear war. Now, here's the funny thing. SDI was incredibly expensive. It may never, ever have worked. But we never got the chance because it was so expensive that one advantage that we had over the Soviet Union, if you remember, was money. They could not match the funding to complete their own version of SDI, so ultimately they began to back down. The Soviet Union spent itself into bankruptcy, and the Soviet Union broke apart in the 1980s, 1990s. Here's the thing. When you look at terrorism today, the United States is trying to outspend the terrorists. We have spent hundreds of billions of dollars in Iraq and Afghanistan right now. But here's the problem with this. It's not like they are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to do things in the United States or in other countries. If you were to bomb the subway, or if you were to bomb, say, a bus, and this happened in Great Britain